Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Namaskar Sabailai, and welcome to the Stimson Center's webinar virtual panel, Getting Ahead of the Storm, Improving Forecasting and Disaster Governance Amid Monsoonal Volatility in Nepal. My name is Austin Lord. I'm a senior fellow with the Stimson Center. I run some of the projects we focus on in Nepal and disaster risk management, and just introduce myself and the webinar and our series we've done so far, and then we'll get right into it. So this webinar today focuses on the recent storm that occurred in Nepal between October 3rd and October 5th. We're going to be going over some of the key decisions that were made, some of the processes that enabled crisis management, but particularly we're going to look at forecasting and the strength of the systems that the government of Nepal uses, both for forecasting storms and other extreme precipitation, extreme weather events, as well as some of the systems that they use for information management that support anticipatory crisis management. So again, trying to get ahead of the storm. My colleague, Jiva Kathmandu, who is with me, can share a bit more information about the framing of the overall of the storm recently. But in general, there's a feeling in the public imagination. There's a feeling that this year's storm was successfully managed to the extent possible. Unfortunately, there were casualties, there were disruptions to infrastructure. But the goal of today's session is to learn about what was done well, what lessons can be taken away from this attempt to come to terms with this increasingly volatile weather at the end of the monsoon, later than expected, and also to identify needs and next steps to strengthen systems further. With that, I'll pass to my colleague, Jiva Kathmandu.
Thank you, Austin. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jivika Kharka, and I'm the project coordinator in Nepal for Stimson Center. And as Austin said, I will be co-moderating today's webinar with Austin. So quickly, I will go over the event schedule, today's webinar schedule, and also share some housekeeping details before we begin. We will start with opening remarks from all the speakers, and some speakers also have PowerPoint presentation as well. So please feel free to share your screen to present. Then we have focused discussions where all the panelists will share their insights on the October storm, as well as the disaster forecasting, risk management, and key lessons learned from that particular event. And then it will be followed by an open audience question and answer session where participants can submit question and answer via the question and answer chat, but the participants cannot be unmuted to ask by themselves. So please indicate in the chat which speaker you would like to address your questions to, and we moderators will select and if necessary merge questions, and also speakers too can choose which questions they would like to answer. And in this webinar, real-time translations will be provided. So professional translators are available in separate channels for Nepali and English. You can select them based on from the icon named interpretation, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. And also speakers may also respond in whichever language they prefer. And finally, the event will conclude with the closing remarks from the panelists. Over to you, Austin.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'll just say that this webinar is the fifth one we've done so far with the Stimson Center. They focused on different aspects of disaster risk management and early warning systems. We're really happy to have strong government representation at this event today we'll introduce our speakers in a second, but from key disaster agencies in the government of Nepal. I just want to briefly recognize and thank the supporters of the Stimson Center that enable this webinar series, the Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, the Australian government's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the McConnell Foundation. With that, we'll just do a quick introduction of who's in the room. We have a series of speakers, excellent speakers who we're excited to hear from. First, we'll hear from Bibhuti Pokhrel, who's a senior divisional meteorologist in formerly the climate analytics section and now the meteorological forecasting department at the Nepal government's Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, or DHM. She'll be joined by her colleague, uh, Rojan Lamitane, who is also part of the meteorological forecasting division, who is really at the center of forecasting activities during the recent storm. Next, we'll hear from Binod Parajuli, Senior Divisional Hydrologist within DHM, who's an expert in water and floods and hydrology, who's been at the forefront of dealing with and responding to floods for the government of Nepal for some time. Then we'll hear from Rajendra Sharma, who's an undersecretary with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, also one of the key disaster risk managers responsible for, I think, the lead for early warning systems and anticipatory action within NDRRMA, which is part of the Ministry of Home Affairs. And last but not least, we'll hear from Pradeep Kotiwada, the founder and executive director of Youth Innovation Lab, who is sort of a leader in the realm of disaster information management and innovation when it comes to understanding situations as they develop. He helped design and build the BIPAD portal for the government of Nepal, which is the central information system that's used during crises like this. And he was also part of the decision-making team at the core of the storm. With that, we'll begin our series of remarks. Just to share a bit about the format here, we'll begin with opening remarks. We've asked each speaker to describe their roles and responsibilities and how that informed their experiences during the storm, some of the key points of their experience during the multiple days of the storm. And then we'll pass it over to each speaker to give focused responses to some questions that we provided and sort of frame some of the key questions as we see them. We'll come to those questions later, but to begin with, we just want to open the floor to our speakers to give comments about their experiences during the storm and how their expertise came to matter. Bibhuti ji, please, over to you.
Thank you. Namaskar. म विभूति पोखरेल, सिनियर डिभिजनल मेट्रोलोजिस्ट जल तथा मौसम विज्ञान विभागमा कार्यरत छु र अहिले चाहिँ म यो मौसम पूर्वानुमान महाशाखामा भर्खरै चाहिँ अब यसमा जोइन गरेको छु हैन र मनसुन जति बेला चाहिँ यो 3rd to 5th अक्टोबरमा यो इभेन्ट भयो, एक्सट्रिम प्रेसिपिटेसन र फ्लडिङ पनि इभेन्ट भनेछु हामीले, जति बेला यो इभेन्ट भयो त्यति बेला चाहिँ म एक्ज्याक्टली मौसम पूर्वानुमान महाशाखामा नभए पनि यो इभेन्टलाई चाहिँ एकदम क्लोजली हेरिरहेको थिएँ र अब मौसम पूर्वानुमान महाशाखामै भएको हुनाले चाहिँ यसमा चाहिँ मैले जोइन गरेको छु र सँगसँगै मसँग चाहिँ रोजन पनि हुनुहुन्छ, रोजनजी, जो चाहिँ यो इभेन्ट हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ एक्टिभली सक्रिय हुनुहुन्थ्यो र इभेन्टकै कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब यो फर्स्ट विक हैन, पहिलो हप्तामा, अक्टोबरको पहिलो हप्तामा चाहिँ मनसुन सक्रिय भएको थियो, जबकि बाँकी अब अघिल्ला महिनाहरूको कुरा गर्ने हो भने मनसुनकै समग्र मनसुनकै कुरा गर्ने हो भने जसरी अगस्टमा, जुन जुलाई अगस्टमा चाहिँ सक्रियता देखाउनु पर्ने थियो त्यो चाहिँ सक्रियता नदेखाएको र जब चाहिँ मनसुन बहिर्गमन हुने बेला लास्टतिर चाहिँ इभन फर्स्ट विक अफ अक्टोबरै भनौँ एकदमै एक्टिभ देखिएको, सक्रिय देखिएको र एकदमै वर्षा चाहिँ भारी वर्षादेखि धेरै भारी वर्षासम्म चाहिँ वर्षा देखेको, स्पेसल्ली चाहिँ यो मध्य प्रदेश, बागमती प्रदेश र कोशी प्रदेशहरूमा चाहिँ धेरै सक्रिय देखिएको र धेरै सेक्टरहरू भनौँ अब यो जुन भारी वर्षा थियो यसले चाहिँ अब यो बाढी, पहिरो हैन, यो सबै स्पेसल्ली यो यातायातदेखि लिएर मान्छेको दैनिक जीवनमा पनि धेरै असर गरेको देखिएको थियो र दुईटा स्टेसन, यो हिमाली गाउँ र इलाम टी स्टेट छ, यो इलाम जिल्लाको, त्यस्तै गरी चाहिँ यो गौर वान स्टेसन, रौतहटको जिल्लाको एउटा स्टेसन र यो वीरगन्जमा चाहिँ न्यू रेकर्ड अहिलेसम्मको भनौँ न, अहिलेसम्म हामीसँग रेकर्डेड जति छ वर्षा छ त्यसको चाहिँ एक्सट्रिम 24 आवर प्रेसिपिटेसन हेर्ने भने 5th अक्टोबरमा चाहिँ यो चाहिँ रेकर्ड ब्रेकिङ देखिएको थियो र गौरको चाहिँ अब 3 दिनकै एकुमुलेटेड प्रेसिपिटेसन हेर्ने भने पनि 515 मिलिमिटर चाहिँ अब देखिएको छ र यो सँगसँगै चाहिँ अब यो इभेन्ट आफैमा चाहिँ हामीले जसरी अब जलवायु परिवर्तनको कारणले नेपाल जस्तो देशहरूलाई चाहिँ असर गरिरहेको अवस्थामा चाहिँ यो इभेन्ट आफैमा हाम्रो लागि चाहिँ धेरै च्यालेन्जिङ रहेको थियो र यस्तो टाइपको इभेन्टहरू चाहिँ अब फेरि पनि हामी चाहिँ एकदम यसको लागि चाहिँ प्रिपेयर हुनुपर्ने हैन र हाम्रो एक्सपिरियन्सेसहरू जस्तो चाहिँ हामीले यो यति बेला भोग्यौँ, यो एक्सपिरियन्सेसहरू चाहिँ हाम्रो लागि चाहिँ धेरै महत्त्वपूर्ण हुने चाहिँ अब देखिएको छ। र सँगसँगै हाम्रो रोजनजी पनि हुनुहुन्छ जो चाहिँ इभेन्ट हुँदाखेरि सँगै त्यही हुनुहुन्थ्यो होइन। उहाँको एक्सपिरियन्सहरू पनि अब हामी फोकस्ड उसमा चाहिँ हामी अझ डिटेलमा हामी आउनेछौँ। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Vibhuti-ji. For the next opening remark, I would like to request Rajendra Sharma, sir. I think he has got a PowerPoint presentation, so if you can share your screen and start the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jivika-ji. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. So I'm going to present one presentation, a small presentation entitled Disaster Governance Amid Monsoonal Volatility in Nepal. So I'm Rajendra Sharma, working in NDRRMA, National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, Nepal. So every year, the monsoon outlook we get from SASCOP as well as from the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology in Nepal. After we get the monsoon forecast, monsoon outlook, then we prepare the monsoon preparedness and response plan. Every year we do that, and that is the plan, national plan. And in that plan, we gather all the plans from all the ministries, departments, security personnel, NGOs, everyone, and compile in one document. Coming to the 3 days forecast, October forecast, we get the 3 days forecast from Department of Hydrology and Meteorology in September 30. After getting the forecast, we dispatch the letters to 7 provinces, 77 districts, and 753 local levels that we have in Nepal. And also, after getting the forecast that heavy rain is, there is a possibility of heavy rain in certain part of Nepal, we did the coordination virtual meetings with various sectors, stakeholders. And also, command center was in operation during that time. And you can see our Minister of Home Affairs is also addressing in command center, and we worked 24/7 during that 2 or 3 days. And after we start receiving the more forecast from Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, we decided to halt the traffics in highways and manage the passengers. They are stuck in the highways. We also dispatched a letter to security forces to be in high alert, and national holiday was announced for 2 days to restrict the mobility because our highways are very vulnerable to flooding and landslides. That's why. And early action, including evacuation of vulnerable people, were also done during this time, and helicopters and ambulance were standby. And also on 4th October, there was a national speech from our Prime Minister. The highlights of the address of that address was, your safety is our top priority. Okay, and this communication was also done through various means, like from CRBT to SMS. SMS was sent through DHM to 6.5 million alert SMS was sent within these 2-3 days. And other social networkings, social networks was used at that time for dissemination of the information. And also anticipatory action work was done in the community level as well. And security forces were involved in early action and response, like Nepal Army, from Nepal Army 1,782, from Nepal Police 13,000, more than about 14,000 armed police force, about 12,000 they were involved in early action work, and total 4,257 population was rescued, and via helicopter also 18 people were rescued. You can see some pictures. Nepal police, armed police force, volunteers also have done good job at this time. And this is the timeline that I mentioned before. This is all timeline which I have already mentioned. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rajendra sir. Yeah, so adding to what Rajendra sir just shared, I'd like to share a few information. So being a member of Stimson Center and Stimson Center being actively working on anticipatory action works as well. I represented Stimson Center in the recent 2-day event marking the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. And that event featured the National Dialogue on DRR that happened yesterday and the day before yesterday. So even there, the discussions at the event also reflected on the recent October storm, drawing out the broader lessons from disaster governance in Nepal. And among the many issues that were raised in that event, several are particularly relevant to our discussions today. And one of the most strongly voiced messages was the need to prioritize investment in institutionalizing the resilience over to the reactive disaster management. And this shift, however, depends greatly on the stronger coordination and collaboration across sectors. And speakers and participants there also stressed that resilience cannot be achieved without the community empowerment and local leaderships. And building onto this, I'd like to really share that in the closing session of the event from the Ministry of Energy, Honorable Minister Mr. Kulman Ghising, he also highlighted that during the October event, due to the timely early warning and effective information dissemination, that played a crucial role in saving lives and minimizing flood-related casualties. However, he also acknowledged that there is still continued challenge in landslide forecasting compared to flood forecasting. As seen in eastern Nepal, particularly in Ilam, human casualties were largely the result of landslides. And he noted that there is urgent need for nationwide geological mapping. So in this context, our next speaker for his opening remark is Mr. Binod Parajuli. He's the Senior Divisional Hydrologist from Department of Hydrology and Meteorology. And Binod, sir, if you can please share your experience during the recent storm, particularly from your institutional or professional perspective. And we would also like to hear about your contributions to disaster forecasting, flood forecasting, pre-disaster analysis, and your role in disaster response and crisis management during the event. To Binod Parajuli, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Jivika ji and Austin ji. I hope you are hearing me well, right?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Again, warm greetings to everyone. I'm joining today on behalf of the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, where I serve as the Senior Divisional Hydrologist and in charge of the flood forecasting section. Before I begin, I would like to kindly request, I will try to speak mostly in English, but in case I feel more comfortable expressing some points in Nepali, I may use both language. I hope that will be fine for all of you, and the translator can support. So many things have been already discussed or mentioned by the previous speakers. Without repeating, I'd like to share some of the insights. So this year's October 3 to 5 storms, particularly 4 to 6, 4 to 5, was once again a real test for our early warning system and institutional coordination. Despite the intensity of rainfall and its impact, the collaboration among DHM, NDRRMA, provincial and local governments, security agencies, communities, and humanitarian partners helped us to minimize the overall losses, and that has already been discussed by Rajendra sir in his presentation. Now to give you a picture of how things worked on the ground, this event actually came right in the middle of Nepal's biggest festival, Dasai, you all know. Most government offices were closed, and out of our 7 staffs working in the flood forecasting section, almost everyone was on leave. 3 hydrologist forecasters, 4 assistant hydrologists, and 2 communication support staff. With the provision to work from home, as we had seen the signal of this disaster even maybe 7 or 8 days earlier. As we all know, disaster don't follow holidays. Forecasting cannot stop, so I had to take full responsibility to keep operations running 24 hours, staying at the office. But as I mentioned earlier, the staffs who were in home were also assisting me, and 2 assistant hydrologists were also staying in Kathmandu to handle the toll-free hotline, while 2 hydrologists supported remotely in issuing the bulletins, SMS alerts, and etc. So I personally stayed continuously in the office for almost 60 hours, starting from the evening of 4th October, in managing forecasts, coordination meetings with NDRRMA, and constant communication with the media and stakeholders, etc. And that level of duty and dedication is not new for us. This is how the flood forecasting section has always worked during every severe events. We have experienced similar experience in the past as well. On the 30th of September, as Vibhuti ma'am already mentioned, and Jivika ji also mentioned, DHM Meteorological Forecasting Division issued a special weather forecast for the period of October 4 to 6, identifying the potential zones of heavy rainfall, and we also identified the flood risks according to that forecast. And on October 1, 3 days earlier, we issued a press release as we were almost certain of the heavy rainfall and flooding in the Kosi, Madhya, and Bagmati provinces, and the river flowing through those provinces. And based on analysis of the forecast, model results, and etc., we mentioned red, orange, and yellow alerts focusing on the Bagmati, Kamala, Kosi, and Kankai river systems, including all small tributaries in the basins and nearby, in the press release. Once the system started developing on 17th, we began updating frequently and dissemination through the website, Facebook, Twitter X, toll-free hotlines, and etc. We worked closely with NDRMA, provincial emergency operating centers, local governments, while also briefing national media and community radio networks, and etc. The system started with light to moderate rainfall on 17th evening and become severe on 18th. The flooding started on the 18th evening, particularly in the major river basins, but some of the smaller river basins were already flooded, maybe around the midday of 18th. And during the event, more than 6.6 million people received audio warnings as SMS. Our toll-free hotline handled about 2,100 calls per day, including both NTC and NSL, and over the 3 days of peak flooding, more than 6,000 calls were answered only in flood forecasting section. I think similarly the data in case of weather forecasting division as well. And many of those calls were directly from the communities and local officials. And as I mentioned already, several rivers, especially Bagmati, Kamala, Kosi, and Kankai, crossed their danger and warning levels. But because the forecasts were quite good, real-time observation, best updates, and warnings were issued in time, the overall casualties remained very low. If you look at the casualty only due to flood, but of course there is a bigger casualty which is particularly due to the landslide. And across the country, only 11 flood-related fatalities, as Rajendra already mentioned, were recorded only due to flood, though the total loss is about 50, mainly due to landslides. And now 4 of loss due to flood were due to people attempting to cross flooded rivers in Rosua. And considering that rainfall exceeded 350 millimeters in 24 hours in some Tarai districts and also in mountain district Ilam, we can see the early warnings and strong coordination help prevent a much larger tragedy this year in this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Pinodji. And we'll come back to another round of focus questions to each of our speakers shortly after these introductions. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Pradeep to share his experiences during this storm. And I know it's not his first storm either, so hopefully he'll compare a bit to past experiences as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. So first of all, a big thanks to DHM and NDRMA for commendable work in this difficult situation that we just passed. In my a bit of experience for 5 years working closely with NDRMA, I have never seen such a swift response, coordinated response. I think this is one of the reasons that everybody felt that I think the government was very serious about this disaster and how they could mitigate in a coordinated manner as well. So especially like just giving the kind of landscape, like how I was part of it. I mean, we have been working closely with NDRMA for past 6-7 years, and one of the role was to support on this integrated disaster information management system. But then I think that will just be alone, like if data sets from other department doesn't come together. So I saw, especially when we went to NDRMA, so I got a call early in the morning, and then I was there around 11 o'clock. Binod sir was giving presentation, and we were able to know like what was the situation on that time. And there were a lot of other officials as well. We started coordinating, and that actually went throughout the night, and which could do a lot of response. But I think just to summarize, how data and technology, and especially data-driven efforts were taken. So especially we know the strength of DSM is to forecast and to give real-time alerts. So that was there. But then we were having difficulties like to identify hazard-prone areas. So especially from Kathmandu, the Bagmati River basin, tributaries and streams, especially the Thapathali, Tripureshwar areas where there was, the impacts were seen at the forefront. And similarly, the security personnel were deployed for the rescue. There was challenges in different ways as well, as we have some informal settlements on those areas as well. People were not, they were not happy to just leave their home and then go somewhere else. And then, it took a bit of time, though it was a very difficult situation, but they managed to evacuate a lot of people. Similarly, we start finding like different hotspot zones, especially in Madhesh areas as well. So from Kathmandu to Tarai, this monitoring went throughout the night, and we were able to do a lot of coordinated effort those days. The other things I would like to appreciate is that I mean, Rajendra sir already mentioned about, I mean, it was a public holiday, but also the government at local authorities also did a fantastic work as well. Similarly, the security personnels. A lot of vehicles were stranded in different zones because they were trying to come towards Kathmandu, and it was a Dasai time. People normally, like, they often travel from different places. Kathmandu, they have just left a lot of people left Kathmandu, and they wanted to come back to put tika from different relatives, and they were stranded at that time. And then it was a very difficult time because for them, like the management of food and also to identify like it's a safe place. They were parking their vehicles, or they were there. So it was a lot of efforts that were put together. And overall, I think the use of data sets like the hazard data sets to identification of all those areas. And similarly, we work together with Binod sir, Rajendra sir, to identify some of the hotspot areas as well. Like we categorize the most rich areas, so that it was easier to communicate with the local personnels and other authorities as well. A lot of communication channels were deployed. A lot of preparation were done. For example, helicopters were managed. The rescue team was, like managed from different zones. Also, the private sectors, especially those like who does surfing and river activities, like they were also voluntarily like sharing that they were ready to be deployed. There were a lot of people like were stranded at the mountains as well. A lot of relief workers like or highly trained professionals, they were ready to be deployed on those areas as well. So these everything were possible like in a coordinated efforts. First time like I saw NDRRMA, I'm not sure about DHM, but or maybe probably I've not seen NDRRMA working that way, but I've seen for the first time like all the government officials were there, like taking phone calls. The call center was there, handled by NEOC. So it was a really, really good moment, being a humanitarian and like working in this domain, to see firsthand how all the government officials were working in a coordinated way. So I think this has set the precedent, like how this level of coordination should be done. And I think this is a very good way forward for any leaderships to come as well, and also exemplary work for other countries to like do a better preparation as well as to take it forward. So I'll stop here, Austin.
Thank you, Pradeep. I think this has been an excellent survey of the landscape and of some of the key decisions made. Rajendra's slides in particular, I was messaging him on the side saying, when we answer questions next time, please bring them back up because that timeline is particularly useful. We'll now transition into a couple of key questions that we posed to our speakers prior to the event, focused on specific aspects of the overall response, and also looking at systems and looking at the improvement of those systems going forward. Jivika, would you like to share some of the questions we posed to Vibhuti, and then allow both Vibhuti-ji and Rojan-ji to answer them? And Rojan, I know we didn't get a chance to hear about your experiences at MFD during the storm, so if you can squeeze a little bit of that in, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. So as Austin said, we will have focused questions for each of our speakers, and our speakers will have 6 minutes to share their views. The first question is for Ms. Vibhuti Pokhrel from DHM. So from a forecasting perspective, if you can describe what aspects of the October late monsoon storm was the most difficult to predict accurately, and what factors contributed to those challenges. And if you can also elaborate how have forecasting practices improved this year compared to the last year, because this has been discussion these days, and how would you assess the spatial accuracy of this year's forecast, particularly while comparing the last year's September event when DHM actually issued a nationwide alert, and this year with more accurate forecasting spatially. DHM forecast focused on eastern Nepal, and it proved to be more precise. So Vibhuti ma'am, and since Rojanji was in the forecasting room during the event, after Vibhuti ma'am's remarks, if Rojanji, you can share some of your experience and contribution during the event. Thank you to Vibhuti ma'am.
Okay, so we issued a special monsoon bulletin on 30 September at 8 p.m. And after that, we ask all we will update यसलाई चाहिँ हामी फेरि पनि अब अपडेट गर्छौं भनेर चाहिँ हामीले भनेको थियौं स्पेशल बुलेटिन चाहिँ हामीले 30 सेप्टेम्बरमा इस्यु गर्यौं यसमा चाहिँ दशैं विशेष बुलेटिन किनभने दशैं चाहिँ हाम्रो एकदमै अब ठुलो चाडबाड पनि भयो हैन नेपालीहरुको लागि फ्रम दैट पर्सपेक्टिभ हामीले चाहिँ यो एकादशी द्वादशी र त्रयोदशी भनेर चाहिँ 3 दिनको लागि चाहिँ इस्यु गरेको थियौं हैन दो इभेन्ट हामीले यो इभेन्टलाई चाहिँ we were our meteorological forecasting personnel they were observing the event from very from almost 15 days ahead also उनीहरुले चाहिँ हेरिरहेको र लीड पिरियड अब यसको किनभने हामीले कुनै पनि फोरकास्ट इस्यु गर्दाखेरि we look at the विश्वसनीयता पनि हेर्छौं हामीले हैन किनभने जसरी चाहिँ अब हामीले अब धेरै देख्छौं पनि किनभने आजकल फोरकास्टिङ त्यति पहिला जस्तो हामीले अब स्पेसिफिक हैन मेट्रोलोजिस्टै भनेर भने हुँदैन बिकज वी गेट एभ्रीथिङ अन वेबसाइट्स अन एभ्रीथिङ इज फ्री सो अगाडि देखि नै कमेन्टहरु आएको चाहिँ हुन्छ हैन यो इभेन्ट यसरी हुनेवाला छ भनेर तर हामीले कुनै पनि इभेन्टलाई चाहिँ एकदमै अब यो विश्वसनीय छ अब हामीले यो मेसेज दिँदाखेरि चाहिँ समाजमा एउटा त्रास फैलिदैन भनौं न किनभने जस्तो पाए उस्तै मेसेज दिँदाखेरि चाहिँ समाजमा चाहिँ एउटा अब त्रासदी फैलिने पनि हुन्छ ल एकदमै ठुलो आउँछ रे इभेन्ट भनेर धेरै जसो अब देखिन्छ पनि अहिले सामाजिक सञ्जालहरुमा हैन हामीले यो सबै चीजलाई विचार गरेर हाम्रो फोरकास्टिङ डिभिजनबाट चाहिँ हामीले यो दशैं अगाडि चाहिँ किनभने दशैं अलिकति सेन्सिटिभ पनि हुन्छ धेरै जना मान्छेहरु घर जाने भनेर हिडिरहनु भा पनि हुन्छ हैन अब ट्रान्सपोर्टेसनको कुरा हुन्छ त्यो सबैलाई विचार गरेर चाहिँ यो इस्यु गरिएको थियो हैन अब यसमा चाहिँ सबभन्दा अब यहाँ जुन हामीलाई भन्नुभएको छ कि जब फोरकास्टिङ स्ट्यान्ड पोइन्टबाट चाहिँ डिफिकल्ट चाहिँ के प्रिडिक्ट गर्न चाहिँ अलिकति स्पेशली यो स्पेशल कहाँनिर गएर चाहिँ इभेन्ट हुने हो हैन किनभने इभेन्टलाई चाहिँ अब पहिला पनि हामीले हुन सक्ने सम्भावनाहरु त हामीले दिएको हुन्छौं तर स्पेशली नेपाल जस्तो देशमा चाहिँ जस्तो हाम्रो टोपोग्राफी छ हैन यसले चाहिँ धेरै जसो मोडलको बायसनेसहरु यो इभेन्ट चाहिँ यही ठाउँमा गएर हुन्छ भन्न चाहिँ अब धेरै नै कठिन हुन्छ स्पेशली डिफिकल्ट फोरकास्टिङ पर्सपेक्टिभबाट हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ कुन ठाउँमा चाहिँ यो इभेन्ट चाहिँ बढी चाहिँ यसले असर गर्छ विपदको हिसाबबाट चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ एकदमै इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुन्छ हैन र मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट पनि त्यही नै हो र अर्को चाहिँ फोरकास्टिङ प्र्याक्टिसेसहरु चाहिँ अब यो इम्प्रुभमेन्ट भन्ने चीज त अब सधैँभरि भइ नै रहेको हुन्छ हैन अब हामीले अघिल्लो वर्ष भन्दा पनि यो वर्ष चाहिँ अझै इम्प्रुभ गर्यौं भन्ने चाहिँ लाग्छ तैपनि हामीले इभेन्ट वाइज पनि हुन्छ जस्तै अब सेप्टेम्बर को जुन इभेन्ट 29 को कुरा गर्ने हो भने त्यो इभेन्ट आफैमा एउटा ठुलो थियो हैन फ्रम अब मोइस्चरकै कुरा गर्ने हो भने त्यति बेला ह्युज फ्लक्स अफ मोइस्चर छ त्यति बेला इभन फ्रम बे अफ बंगाल अरेबियन सीबाट र जस्तो टाइपको सिस्टम थियो त्यो सिस्टमलाई हेरेर चाहिँ हामीले होल नेपाललाई दिनुपर्ने थियो तर त्यसमा पनि अझ हामीलाई चाहिँ के भयो भन्दाखेरि त्यसमा पनि विशेष गरी चाहिँ अब काठमाडौँको कुरा गर्ने हो भने त्यो इभेन्टमा चाहिँ विशेष गरी चाहिँ 25 वटा स्टेसन अफ काठमाडौँ जिल्लाको मात्रै 25 वटा अफ 14 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैन 25 वटा स्टेसन 14 वटा जिल्लाहरुको चाहिँ न्यू रेकर्ड ब्रेकिङ एक्सट्रिम 24 आवर प्रेसिपिटेसन चाहिँ अब देखिएको छ हैन अब दामनले त त्यति बेला हाईएस्ट थ्रु द एक्युमुलेटेड प्रेसिपिटेसन भनेर 517 मिलिमिटर पनि अब त्यो देखिएको थियो त्यो हिसाबबाट हेर्दा त्यो इभेन्ट आफैमा ठुलो थियो तर अहिले चाहिँ जसरी हामीले प्रिसाइजली अब जसरी अब दिन सक्यौं हैन मधेस प्रदेश विशेष गरी बागमती प्रदेश भन्ने थियौं हैन बागमती प्रदेश र जुन अघिल्लो दशैंको लागि जुन जारी गरिएको बुलेटिन थियो त्यसमा चाहिँ पछि अपडेटेड भर्सनमा चाहिँ हामीले यो इलाम कोशी यो इलाम जुन पछि गएर सुरुमा नदिए पनि त्यो चाहिँ हामीले अपडेट गरेको थियौं हैन त्यो अद्यावधिक गर्ने क्रममा चाहिँ इलामलाई पनि हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ समेटेको थियौं अब जस्तै अब यो डिजास्टर फोरकास्टिङको बारेमा अलि रोजनजीले पनि भन्नुहुन्छ र प्री डिजास्टरको कुरा गर्ने अब कसरी चाहिँ अब मान्छेहरुले लिन्छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ वार्निङ म्यापहरु एकदमै इफेक्टिभ देखिया छ त्यो भन्दा पनि अझ भिडियोहरुमा आउँदाखेरि त्यसलाई पनि अब धेरै रुचाइ दिनु भएको छ हैन हाम्रो एक्सपिरियन्सको कुरा गर्ने हो भने र अब बाँकीमा चाहिँ अब हामीहरू अब 24 घन्टा चाहिँ अब त्यहाँ हुन्छौँ नि। अब हामीहरू हरेक भनौँ न लगभग अब 365 दिन 24 घन्टा हुने र विशेष गरी यस्तो इभेन्टहरूमा चाहिँ धेरै स्ट्रेस पनि भनौँ, किनभने धेरैसँग कोअर्डिनेसन गर्नुपर्ने होइन। अब जसरी अब राज्य एक्टिभ हुन्छ, उहाँहरूले चाहिँ जसरी इन्फर्मेसन अब सूचनाहरू दिनुपर्ने हुन्छ, यो स्ट्रेस चाहिँ रोजनजी तपाईँ हुनुहुन्छ नि होइन, रोजनजीले चाहिँ सेयर गर्नुहुन्छ। रोजनजी
Thank you,
स्पेसली
Vivek.
हजुर
Thank you, Austin, and everyone. म चाहिँ नेपालीमै कुरा गर्छु र विशेष त म्यामले धेरै कुरा नै भनिसक्नुभयो। जति चाहिँ हामीले अघिल्लो वर्षको जुन इभेन्ट र यो वर्षको इभेन्टमा चाहिँ हजुरहरूले भने जस्तो के फरक पायौँ भन्ने कुराहरू नि छ। यसमा चाहिँ हामीले अघिल्लो वर्ष चाहिँ अब म्यामले भने जस्तै एकदमै सिस्टम नै फरक सिस्टम थियो। त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ अब नेपालको पश्चिमी भूभागबाट सिस्टम छिर्ने र बिस्तारै मुभमेन्ट भएर पूर्वतिर सर्ने हुनाले चाहिँ हामीले त्यो सर्टेन केही समयको लागि चाहिँ विशेष गरी अब 3 दिन 5 दिन 7 दिन अगाडिदेखि नै हामीले बुलेटिन चाहिँ जारी गरेको थियो। त्यसमा चाहिँ सबै सेक्टरहरूलाई सबै जिल्लाहरूलाई समेटेर चाहिँ हामीले वार्निङहरू जारी गरेको थियो र त्यो सँगसँगै चाहिँ हामीले केही दिन पछाडि चाहिँ फेरि अर्को अपडेटेड वार्निङ पनि जारी गरेको थियो। त्यसमा चाहिँ विशेष गरी यो बागमती प्रोभिन्स, गण्डकी, लुम्बिनी र कोशी र मधेस प्रोभिन्सलाई गरेर हामीले रेड अलर्ट जारी गरेको थियो। त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ अब ठुलो इभेन्ट र अलिकति हामी यो वार्निङहरू म्याप बनाउँदाखेरि अनि त्यसै गरी कसरी बनाउँदा ठिक हुन्छ, इम्प्याक्ट बेस्ड हामीले लेयर बनाउँदा ठिक हुन्छ कि अथवा रेनफलले धेरै हुने ठाउँहरू हुन्छ भनेर चाहिँ हामीले त्यो कन्फ्युजनहरू भएर अनि त्यसले चाहिँ के असर गर्न सक्छ भन्ने हिसाबले पनि हामीले त्यसलाई लिएर चाहिँ वार्निङ म्याप बनाएको थियौँ। र लास्ट इयरको एक्सपिरियन्स अनुसार चाहिँ हामीले यो वर्ष पनि जुन सिस्टम फरक थियो त्यो चाहिँ पूर्वमा केन्द्रित हुने, जसरी सेन्ट्रल रिजनबाट बिस्तारै पूर्वतिर मुभ हुने सिस्टम थियो र त्यही अनुसार नै हामीले पश्चिमी क्षेत्रहरूलाई त्यति धेरै असर गर्न नसक्ने सम्भावना देखिएको र बिस्तारै बिस्तारै यो वेस्टर्न डिस्टर्बेन्सको असरहरू, वेस्टर्न विन्डको असरहरू पनि देखिने हुनाले चाहिँ पश्चिमतिर त्यति धेरै सिस्टमहरू मुभ नहुने र पूर्वतिरै जाने सक्ने सम्भावना बढिरहेकोले चाहिँ हामीले बढी फोकस पूर्वतिर नै गऱ्यौँ र त्यही अनुसार नै यो वर्ष चाहिँ पूर्वतिर नै बढी पानी परेको अवस्था छ, विशेष गरी बिरगञ्ज आसपासको क्षेत्रहरूमा र विशेष त इलाम आसपासको क्षेत्रहरूमा। र हामीले चाहिँ यो वर्ष पनि टाइमली नै अघि म्यामले भन्नुभयो जस्तै केही दिन अगाडिदेखि नै हामीले वार्निङहरू जारी गरेको थियो। विशेष गरी दसैँ विशेष बुलेटिन भनेर हामीले जारी गरेको थियौँ र त्यसलाई पनि अपडेट गर्दै लगेको थियौँ। र यो सँगसँगै चाहिँ हामीले दसैँ विशेष बुलेटिनमा मात्र नभइकन चाहिँ 3 दिनको मौसम बुलेटिनमा चाहिँ हामीले वार्निङ म्यापहरू चाहिँ अपडेट गर्दै गरौँ। त्यो कुन ठाउँमा चाहिँ अलिकति बढी वार्निङहरू दिन पर्छ, त्यहाँ चाहिँ कुन क्षेत्रमा चाहिँ अलिक बढी क्षेत्र असरहरू हुनसक्छ भनेर चाहिँ हामीले वार्निङ म्याप पनि यो वर्ष चाहिँ 3 दिनको बुलेटिनमा पनि प्रत्येक बिहान र बेलुका बेलुका गरेर चाहिँ हामीले बुलेटिनहरू, वार्निङ म्यापहरू पनि अपडेट गर्दै गयौँ। र त्यो म्याप चाहिँ हामीले सोसियल मिडिया थ्रु, भिडियो मार्फत, त्यसै गरी विभिन्न न्युज मिडिया मार्फत र फोन कल मार्फत पनि विभिन्न स्टेक होल्डर, पब्लिक सबैलाई चाहिँ जानकारी गरायौँ। र अहिले चाहिँ विशेष गरी अब सोसियल मिडियाहरूमा अनि मलाई लाग्छ कि अब लास्ट इयरको जुन एक्सपिरियन्स थियो त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ सबै मानिसहरूले चाहिँ अब यो जुन मौसम पूर्वानुमानलाई चाहिँ अझ पनि यो महत्त्वपूर्ण दिएको जस्तो लाग्छ। र त्यो महत्त्व दिएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ सबै डिसिमिनेसनहरू जुन जल तथा मौसम विज्ञान विभागले जुन पूर्वानुमान गरेको थियो, फोरकास्ट गरेको थियो, त्यो पूर्वानुमानलाई चाहिँ सबैले चाहिँ त्यसलाई मनन गरेर चाहिँ यो फोरकास्ट डिसिमिनेसन गरेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि अलिकति सबै सतर्क भएको र क्षति कम भएको पनि अनुमान चाहिँ गर्न सकिन्छ। त्यो सिस्टम चाहिँ हामीले यसरी एक्सपिरियन्स गरेको थियो। थ्याङ्क यू। अरू केही छ भने फेरि बिस्तारै पनि यसको बारेमा अपडेट गर्ने हुन्छु। थ्याङ्क यू सो मच।
Great. Thank you, both Bibhuti and Rosanji. So a couple of questions from us to Binod, who will be the next to give some prepared remarks. The questions that we posed for him were focused on moving from flood forecasting to response, the technical, institutional, and operational lessons that have come over the years in his experience. So the questions are, what aspects of forecasting were different this year compared to previous years that enabled DHM and your team to provide a more accurate forecast or to enable more rapid response? From your perspective in translating forecasts into action, how successful was the coordination between DHM, NDRMA, and local governments? Pradeep mentioned when he came into the room at the Central Command, you were giving a presentation. You all have been involved in coordination, but perhaps, Binod, you can speak to this, and Rajendra as well. And then, were there gaps between the forecasted risks and the actual situation on the ground, specifically with regard to flooding? Were there regions that you did not expect, where things popped up? And how were these addressed in real time? How was there sort of a pattern of adaptive management during the crisis? And these are the questions we shared. Over to you, Binod. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the very important question. I think some of the aspect of the comparison between the previous monsoon flood and this monsoon 4 to 6 October event has already been done by the meteorological forecasters, Bibhuti ma'am and Rojanji. Yeah, remembering the last monsoon flood, I had actually recently joined the flood forecasting section as in charge just 1 week before that event. And I remember for that event, we had also issued special bulletins, both weather forecast bulletin and flood forecast bulletin, maybe 3-4 days earlier. And but the system was the forecast was not same every day like this year. That time also the 4 or 5 days earlier forecast was not very accurate spatially, but that also happens same for this event. But after maybe before 3 or 4 days, then after this year the forecast didn't change. Last year it changed a lot, particularly in the western region, because special bulletin we issued special red alert for West Rapti and Bombay Basin as well, but flooding only occurs in the Narayani, Bagmati, Kankai river basins, and also the Kosi river basin, mainly the Sunkosi, Roshi side. So that time the forecast wasn't very accurate spatially, and even with the lead time of 2 days. But this year it didn't change. For actually, after maybe with the lead time of 3 or 4 days, it didn't change. So most of the models, rainfall forecast models, also showing the same results, and also the flood forecasting our own model, and also the global model like GeoGlows, GLOFAS, and 24-hour, 36-hour flash flood guidance system of WM, that all were also matching. So that was the case. Now, talking about the strengths and gaps, maybe first the accuracy and timeliness of forecasts were our biggest strength this time, I think. The spatial and temporal alignment between a forecasted rainfall, as I mentioned before, and flood and actual flood event was very close. Because in our special bulletin, and it's not a special bulletin, it's a press release on 1st of October, we had very clearly mentioned the 5 major river basins that were East Rapti, Bagmati, Kamala, Kosi, and Kankai. Now, out of these 5-6 basins, one, East Rapti, it didn't record the danger level flood, but warning level was crossed. But all other rivers crossed their danger level, and which were actually included in our special press release 3 days earlier. And second, the coordination works smoothly, as Pradeep sir and Rajendra sir already mentioned. The coordination this year was very good. DHM's early warning were directly linked with NDRMA incident command, and information flowed quickly to provinces and local governments also. And this ensured that alerts were not just issued but also acted upon in the field. And the third is our multi-channel communication, that is website, social media, hotline, and mass SMS, and also the regular press briefing that created multiple pathways for people to receive the alerts. Even if one channel failed, other ensured the message reached to the destination. And the fourth, I think, the human factor. Despite the limited manpower and festival holidays, the dedication of staff in the flood forecasting section made the system highly resilient. And forecasting is not only about technology; it's also about people who refuse to give up when the situation demands continuous attention. And finally, on the side of strength, the trust from the public. I think this has already been discussed. Receiving over 6,000 calls, thousands of alerts in social media were shared during 3 days window. And that shows how much the community now relies on DHM's forecasts and guidance. And talking about the gaps, uh, yes, there are still important gaps. Current forecasting models still struggle to capture very localized event, especially in smaller ungauged catchments, temporally, spatially, and also in terms of magnitude. That's the struggle that we faced this year also, though the forecasts are improving slowly. And some urban inundation and flash floods, like in Birgunj, Kalaya, Gaur, in the Tarai districts, and also some small tributaries that will remain outside our observation network. That we means the flood forecasting network, flood monitoring network, actually, an inundation network. And we do not have our own models to develop for medium-sized rivers such as Kamala and Kankai, where we do not have very good quality data to develop forecasting model. But we are trying to develop where the water level crossed danger and impact the communities this year. Though based on the danger and warning levels, we issued the SMS in time, and no casualties happened in those reverse floodplain. And next gap is, I think, the risk assessment. We don't have detailed flood risk map developed for any of the rivers. We only have hazard maps, inundation maps, based on which we have developed. We have defined the warning and danger thresholds. We have created the SMS polygon, but we need risk map, detailed risk map. Actually, risk map are not actually developed because of the limitation with the high resolution digital elevation model. And the inundation maps and the hazard map that we have developed so far are based in coarse resolution DEM. So we need high resolution DEM. And I think another gap is we face communication overload during major events. At times, call volumes exceeds our response capacity. This in this monsoon, and particularly during 4 to 6, we faced that challenge also. And as I mentioned, a few casualties occurred because of risky public behaviors. And this shows that while people receive the warnings, behavioral response and awareness still need to improve. And internally, staff fatigue and limited backup of staff remain a structural challenge for a continuous operational system. Yeah, I stop now.
Thank you, Binoji. So, you like to take this, Austin, or?
Yeah, I think because we're running a bit behind on time, and because we have some great questions in the audience Q&A, because some of the questions we've asked have already been addressed in previous remarks. I'll reframe some of the questions that we posed to Rajendra Ji, who will give some comments next. Rajendra, if you could please just highlight some of what you think were the innovative disaster risk management efforts, the new decisions that were made, or the new efforts that were made during this recent storm that you think made a difference. Again, from being inside NDRMA and seeing last year's storm and this year's storm, what were some of the key improvements? You've highlighted a few, but just to put a sharp point on it. And if you could call up that slide again that you had with the disaster timeline from the NDRMA perspective, I think that would be really helpful just to have in the background while you speak. The other questions are just specifically, we've talked about coordination, but what does coordination with local governments and provincial governments, provincial emergency operations centers, for example, what does that look like during the event? And how has that improved or changed in the past few years? And then just generally, again, to the timeline, what other types of activities are still going on now, 10 days after the storm or so? For example, what work is ongoing in Ilam? So if you could speak to that, that would be great. Thank you, Rajendra.
Thank you, Austin. So this was my last slide last time, which I did not explain. As you mentioned, the highlights, the main thing that we did this time was the activation of command center. That was as Binodji and Pardebji also mentioned before, that was a highlight of this event. So the command center was 24 hours in operation. In that command center, we brought the experts from various departments, various ministries in one center, and communication was done through single channel. So everyone understand what the government was actually saying to them, what the government was thinking at that time. You can see the picture of Binodji also here. So this is the timeline you can see. And there was one question about the transition from the acute disaster response to the longer term recovery process. How was it done? So I will also like to respond in that question also. So you can see here from September 30 to 9th October, and there is timeline. After getting the forecast information, we have been doing several works from the command center. So like in 30 September, we get Dasai special bulletin. 1st October, advisory from NDRRM and DHM. And 2nd and 3rd October, the coordination with stakeholders through NDRRMA. 4th October, special address by Prime Minister. 4th October, vehicle movement restricted, etc. So to talk about the transition, not only transition from the acute response to the recovery, but also transition from forecast, early warning, early action, response, recovery. That was so smooth this time. And after doing the response, there was a meeting of, you can see here, 90th meeting of National Council for DRRM, Disaster Risk Reduction and Management. So this National Council is chaired by Prime Minister. And on 7th October, from that meeting, this one of the districts which was most affected by landslide, it was state of emergency was declared in that district, so that the work can be focused and financial and human resources can be concentrated in that area. So for the relief and reconstruction, we are working on the most affected areas there. So this is how we coordinated this time, and it was quite impressive, as the previous speakers also highlighted. So, yeah, thank you. This is how we did.
Thank you, Rajendra sir. We are pretty tight on time, so without wasting much time, the next question we would like to pose on to Mr. Pradeep Khatiwara from Youth Innovation Lab. Pradeep ji, if you can describe how Bipat portal was used during 2025 as well as the year ahead, 2024 storm events, and also talk about how platforms like Bipat portal, including other decision support tools, contributed to real-time situational awareness, rapid assessments, and information sharing, especially during the October 3 to 5 rainfall event. And maybe you can pivot to talking a bit about localization, what types of localized reporting occurred during the storm, and how is the system of Bipat portal set up to receive this information. And since you are from the Innovation Lab, one last question. If you can also share on aspects of risk communication from your broader work in Youth Innovation Lab, Pradeep ji.
Okay. Thank you, Jivika. I think for those like who doesn't know about Bipat portal, it's a government of Nepal's national integrated disaster information management system. Basically, it pulls credible data sets from all the governments, including DHM and all those ministries who actually produce data sets on different disaster-related domains. So it's a model of all the portals that house disasters, risks informations, and also hazard and real-time informations contributed by the government data itself. So, I mean, regarding the use of those data sets, I think, I mean, we should go back, not just in this particular event, but also like in the preparatory work. So this has been localized in multiple palikas, like in more than 90 palikas. Even Youth Innovation Lab has contributed through the fellowship programs. So it's not just about like just disseminating these messages during the disaster, but also the local capacity to understand those like data sets and like be ready when these sort of disaster events occurs. So we were ready for that. And also government, especially NDRRMA, has been working with different stakeholders like us, localizing in different strategies, and also other humanitarian agencies are also working in Nepal in different ways. So these coordinated way efforts has been preparing the local capacity to be able to like understand these sort of humanitarian priorities from like past few years. And I think this is also the result that these institutions were able to handle this sort of massive events very gracefully as well. They were prepared in terms of relief. They're prepared in terms of rescue as operations as well. And despite after this, like Gen Z revolution, also a lot of local institutions were, like impacted, but also they were able to manage like the resources, and they were prepared in terms of response and rescue as well. So also regarding the data sets in Bipat portal, especially the risks part that also Bino quite nicely mentioned as well. So our focus has limited to alerts, disseminations, but I mean those things and also the anticipatory activities are quite limited to a broader areas. For example, like we can only say in eastern part of Nepal or western part of Nepal, but I mean we cannot say particularly to some river basins like where the impacts could be more. So I think in this disaster, like in this event, we were able to identify some of the local areas, but it was too manual work. So if there is a system, for example, the risk assessment system through the household data sets where we could have the vulnerable population informations to the historical data informations in one place, not just information management system like Bipat portal, but something which can analyze and give data sets to DHM, and DHM sending all those messages through different means to those people in priority. So that could also save a lot of lives. And another thing, what I think I have seen noticed is the landslide impact as well. Like our focus will remain in flood, but also landslide took a lot of lives. And in one particular event in eastern Nepal, so we lost a huge number of people in one particular event. Means there is also an information gap, like how we disseminate these messages to those vulnerable communities as well. We were working on that, like to identify those areas, but also it's difficult to identify the landslide prone areas in those sort of events. So I think there is a heavy preparation required on this domain as well. The other thing what I've identified in terms of risk communication is not just challenge within Nepal because of the nature of risk communication, and to be able to communicate risks precisely to the local authorities and also to the stakeholders, we need a lot of different kind of data sets. And also Binod sir rightly put some of the limitations of the government capacity as well as DHM and NDRMA capacity is not having a high resolution DAM to a lot of adequate data sets to be able to interpret those data sets. I think these are some of the gaps like that we need to work on to be able to identify the most risk areas with all those informations and indicators, and also be able to communicate those informations to the people who are at most risks. So that should be the priority in coming days as well. But I think this overall experience has given some level of confidence, like how we can tackle during the disasters. But still, preparatory work is still needed. We have seen the gaps. We need to be able to identify those gaps, streamline those gaps, and like allocate resources in a firm manner from the post-disaster events. There were some questions about misinformation and disinformation as well. So together with the government, like there were lots of media houses were debunking such kind of disinformations during the disasters, and also people were reporting. I've seen quite a level of intelligence among the people as well. Like they were able to identify AI generated videos, and if they found such kind of fake videos, they were reported through the Facebook, and also some of those were done through the online medias as well. So there was this level of like information as well. But there was a communicated, coordinated manner, like we could see from the different groups, from Facebook to like to the command center, where all the government individuals from different ministries and departments, they came together. For example, the managing director of this electricity authority, he came at the mid of the night around 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and he briefed about the kind of response mechanism he's taking, and also if there was any questions regarding the electricity shutdown or something like that, we were also communicating with him and the other personals as well. So I think this was quite a good achievement that Nepal has done, but still risk communication needs a coordinated effort. We have quite a nice setup from the federal level to the local level. In local level, we have local emergency operation center. So if we bring adequate resources to the local emergency operation center, prioritizing like those sort of places like where such rescue, relief, and or the actions is required, I think those can save a lot of lives. And also what I have seen, like even traveling to different part of the country, especially modest areas, people feel that like they feel like they are living with these kind of disaster for lives, and any major events for them doesn't seems to be major. But you never know, like the thin line between like what is the major and what resiliency they have. So in case of major disasters, I think we need a bit of preparations on that side as well. Like Binosa said, like every moment during those time, was going through our predictions. Like, for example, we were saying like the weather is shifting towards east, and we were able to disseminate those messages towards the authorities in east to make up better preparations, and it exactly went through that timeline. So means we would need like such kind of coordinated effort, but at the same time, like other risk factors, multiple multi-hazard risk factors should also be considered to minimize the risks. That is my one understanding. I think overall, like there is a praise from everyone that the government did a fantastic work this year. But I think there are lots of technical gap, as well as the institutional gaps that we have identified. So we have to embrace that and really work hard to be able to like understand and mitigate those disasters in future. And one last thing, in last year and previous year, so when we had similar disasters in Kathmandu. There was a very well documented report that we were able to compile. And also to the concern for flood, also like there has been a detailed assessment of loss and damage and non-economic loss and damage as well. So we already have a template like how we like identify economic and non-economic losses. So this will also help to I think to do the evaluation of this year's disasters impact, as well as to be able to prepare in future as well. So I will stop here if I have answered all the questions.
That's great. Thank you, Pradeep. That was very comprehensive. And if others have comments later on the misinformation question, that was one that we had flagged too, and we've got a question, as you know, from the audience on that too. With that, we're going to pivot over to questions from the audience. We have 20 minutes left. So we have been incorporating some of the questions of the audience as we go, but we've got a few more explicit ones we'd like to pose. The first one, this came up in several questions, and some of the speakers commented on it already. It was also one that we had flagged earlier as a general roundtable sort of topic, but the value and the importance of well-calibrated risk communication. So obviously, the state, the government of Nepal, the different institutions it represents, and NGOs are constantly experimenting with new systems, improving them. We heard about the call center 1155 that DHM runs, experiencing high volume of calls, which means more users are using it, which is great. There was a question about the challenges of that particular approach too. But I'd like to just say, in general, what sort of strategies would each of you, the speakers, quickly, please, identify as what you think that maybe the two most valuable risk communication strategies, and how have you seen advancement in those areas in recent years? So SMS, polygons, more finely calibrated, that's one way. IVR, right, interactive voice response. And other types of technologies, what do you think is most promising? And is there a balance also with having some of these more traditional type of risk communication networks and distribution networks that are in place, as we've seen with different events, where just a phone tree amongst local communities can also be really critical as it's interwoven with the Community Disaster Management Committee. So yeah, any comments please, from each of the speakers briefly on changes you've seen in the realm of risk communication? I know there's also been to start with, perhaps DHM. I know there's been some really innovative videos in recent years supported by BBC Media Action. There was even one a couple of days ago trying to advise Nepalis about making decisions about their own travel plans. I thought was quite excellent and relevant to the lives that were lost in Langtang this time around in the storm. So yeah, colleagues from DHM perhaps first, and anyone could respond to that.
So social medias, they were effective, and you also talk about IVR, interactive voice response, and I think it was from WMO initiative Pin and Rain. And we have seen that text graphics, they are more effective than text, and videos, they are more effective than graphics. So for risk communication, we would like to add that. And you have also seen, we have also seen the videos from BBC Media Actions and warning maps also. So this has got very good response from our stakeholders.
Rosanji or Binodji, any comments on risk communication specifically, or further comments?
Yeah, I think Bibhuti ma'am has covered the most important part. So in addition to what she just mentioned, we are going to actually implement the shell broadcasting hopefully next year, next monsoon. We are now at the assessment stage. So GSMA has been doing the assessment. So based on the result, we have workshop on November 12th, just decided today. So we will discuss the assessment results among all NTA, MOCIT, NDRMA, DHM, NTC, NCL, etc. So yeah, that is one in plan. And IVR is also, of course, on pipeline. Though the dashboard has already been developed, but due to the data sharing policy of the government, we are facing some difficulty. Hopefully, we will discuss this very soon among MOCIT and the RRMA and DHM and find out the solution. Yeah, because server is now in Singapore, and Nepal government policy doesn't allow the Nepal's data share to the international servers. Yeah, I think BBC ma'am just mentioned those video communications through social media has been very effective. Of course, mass SMS has been effective, but not all the people are getting it, which is because of the limitations with NTC and NCL, because only the call detail record of the last 24 hours get the SMS. So many phone numbers are not very active in the remote location, particularly the vulnerable community. So that is the limitations we are facing. So shell broadcasting will overcome that. Yeah, and of course there is uncertainty with the forecast, and we need to also communicate the uncertainty part. So for that we need to go to the ensemble forecasting and probabilistic forecasting, so that uncertainty part can also be well communicated. Yes.
Great point.
Yeah. That's all from us.
Rajendra Ji, it seems like you had something to add.
Yeah, regarding the communication, this time it was so impressive that in the command center, the TV journalist and radio journalist, they were standby whole night. They were there, and every 1 hour, they were giving the updated news to their network. There were more than 300 radio networks and about 10-12 television networks. Simultaneously, they were transmitting the news. So that was one important thing. And another was about smart sirens. We have installed some smart sirens, like 50 smart sirens in flood prone areas, and those smart sirens were also wisely used this time. So that were two important points in communication. Thank you.
Those are great points. I would also add, I've seen some of the smart sirens in action actually in Bharat say it's pretty amazing. And this gets to one of the questions earlier about alternative languages, minority languages other than Nepali. You can have pre-recorded messages and smart sirens that are calibrated for local audiences, for example, in the Tamang language or Eastern or Western Tamang language. Rosanji, I might just a quick comment from you, if you would, just to highlight, some of the work that the Stimson Center's been doing looking at the impact-based forecasting programs that DHM has developed. I see one of the value, to make risk communication really vibrant, you have to make it a two-way dialogue. And I think that the IBF programs begin to do that very well with creating these Viber groups where people share information and where localized hazard data is reported, which helps calibrate potential impacts and impacts tables. So maybe you could say a few words about that, Rojan.
Thank you, Austin. Like you said, that not only the videos and forecast through the forecast and warning map through the social media, but we also issued the impact-based forecasting. I think it is started in 2021 as a piloting for the some local levels only. But this year and the previous year also, we issued the impact-based forecasting, and we give them the forecast for their local levels uh, by including the impact as well. And we communicate through the local communities and local stakeholders with the real time through the Fiverr, WhatsApp, and through the mail also. So it has been very impactful for this type of event also. So yes, the text from live text forecast. We have growing from text forecast to the visualized format, and by the it is very impressive. Yes, from previous year to this year. By the impact-based forecast, also the visual representations and the warning map also. Yes.
Great. Yeah, and just for those who aren't aware, impact-based forecasting has been piloted in several municipalities over the years, and it's expanding. It's not yet a national program, but it's extremely effective in some of the places it's been developed for a longer period of time. Stimson will share more information on that forthcoming. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Jivika to ask another focused, grouping a couple of questions we got that are all around localization, maybe to two of our speakers in particular. Then we'll begin to wrap up.
Thank you, Austin. So I have a question on localization, and this is also a question posted by one of the audience in the question answer chat box. So the question is, I think both NDRRME, Rajendra sir, and from YLab, Pradeepji, are in a good position to answer this question. This is on localized forecast and early warning works. So considering the extreme weather events, they are becoming more and more frequent during the monsoon. How are how is NDRRME planning to further localize the early warning system informations? The question was also for DHM, how DHM plans to localize the forecasts. So if Binodji can also answer this question. So how can these localized efforts be integrated, and also integrating the local impact information so that we are prepared for the upcoming disaster in the coming monsoon?
And just a reminder to our speakers that if you can, please try to be brief so we can have the quick final closing comments and priority areas from each of you after this. We have about just under 10 minutes left.
So maybe quickly, Binodji can answer for localized forecasts, and then we'll move to...
I'll try to be very brief. So we are now working to enhance high resolution near real time flood and flash flood forecasting by integrating the weather radar data. We have weather radars, but we are just visualizing them, which hasn't been very effective. So once all three weather radars become operational, maybe very soon, 2 of 3 are now operational. And so we need to actually integrate the radar information into flash flood warnings, because flash flood is impacting a lot, landslide is impacting a lot, and mountain, particularly in the mountain, we are facing those problems. That is the one thing. And the next is we are in a plan. We I'm currently in Seoul discussing with the Korean government also. So we are trying to apply the AI-based forecasting, flood forecasting to implement very soon. In that, I think we of course need more stations for more data for the AI, but we will pilot from Kathmandu, Bagmati Basin. Hopefully, before the next monsoon, we try to pilot. So besides this, I think for the local level impact, we need the local level detailed risk assessment, which has already been discussed a lot, and we need dense network of stations because there has been several disasters in the mountain regions, in the river valleys, small rivers, where no observation stations are there. So if we detect any event upstream, like heavy rainfall or cloudburst or glacial lake outburst or landslide dam or something, then we can of course send alert to the downstream communities. But if we couldn't detect, then it will miss. So in that way, we are going to localize, actually improve our forecasting and warning system in local and small scales. Thank you.
Yes, Rajendra sir.
May I come in? Yeah, okay. So very quickly, forecast or real-time precipitation, rainfall, water level monitoring data are of no use if we cannot do the action based on those forecasts or real-time monitoring of stations. So taking in mind, NDRRMA is currently working on anticipatory action framework, putting local level and last mile population in the center. So we are working on that. And also localized risk mapping. We also work on vulnerable exposure mapping of certain areas. And these are the things that we are doing currently for the localization of anticipatory action as well as early warning system. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rajendraji. Pradeep, do you have like a short point you want to make on specifically on localization? Because I know it's been a topic you've done a lot of work on, and maybe pivot into closing thoughts as some of our other speakers have too.
Perfect. I think I'll just highlight. I already mentioned about the fellowship models of localization, like strengthening and capacity transfer to the local government. That is one of our models. The other models that we are working right now is, how we simplify the interpretation of maps in a local language. So we are bringing RIX AI initiatives through which it's a AI agent platform through which people can ask any question and they can identify the risk areas based on the locations they are. So that'll help like understand in their simple local language in a multilingual local languages in coming years. So that will be helpful for people in Nepal as well as we want to make it regional and global in coming days as well. So we believe the interpretation of maps for everyone is quite a tricky thing because to understand different legend and different level of things in a simpler form is quite difficult. That's why we used to do a lot of other initiatives like mural art painting of RIX maps to other things. So this initiative will be helpful. Other things that we have worked in a regional or global platform is like RIX changes with the University of Twente and Asian Institute of Technology. So that is also helpful for any country, any context to be able to generate the RIX map in an automated way as well. I mean, if you can put the local data sets, that can also give you the specific data sets as well. So these things, like simultaneously help in localization. So as long as we provide authentic information in a local language, I think that will be helpful in a long run for citizens.
Excellent. I think, Rajendraji, you need to leave. Do you want to add one more final point for key takeaways and next steps, priority areas? You've already mentioned anticipatory action, which I'll comment on too at the end. But please, before you jump out.
Okay, to address the flood or water-related disasters, single institution cannot do all the work. So coordinated approach, government, private sector, and experts like Pardeepji, we need to come together so that we can come up with a good result. That is my key takeaway. And NDRRM is the coordinating agency, as you know. So we are very happy to coordinate with various, like from forecast DHM to the volunteers, as well as other sectors, stakeholders of the society. So thank you very much.
Okay.
I need to leave now.
Thank you, Rajendraji. We'll thank everyone at the very end in just a minute. We just want to provide, I think Pradeep and Binod and Rajendra have provided their sort of final comments and thoughts. Please let me know if there's one final thing you want to say, but I think you have. But Vibhuti-ji, we'd like to just give you the floor for final comments from the DHM side, from the MFD side. Priorities going forward, next steps, things we can try to prioritize for next monsoon, to get ahead of the storms that will come next year.
Yeah, so we need to work, when we talk about weather forecasting, numerical weather predictions, they have bring different era to weather prediction. So we need to work more on modeling capacity, and again, strengthening station network, making it robust, and again, multimodal ensembles. We need to work more on that. Also, data assimilation, whether from radars or satellites. This makes a huge impact in weather forecasting. And as we were talking about localized, events also, because these have been very important after we have been experiences the impact of climate change and impact-based forecastings. And even, because of our topography, we need to work more on this isolated cases also. And human resource, technology, capacity building, these are always the most. So we need to work more on this for accurate, precise weather forecasting, or early warning responses. These are the must in a world where we are being severely impacted by the climate change. So I think these are the points. Thank you.
Okay, we're a bit over time, so I'll just say one final thing and then I'll pass it to Jivika to wrap us up, provide some final remarks, and thanks to all of our speakers. But I just want to end on several speakers mentioned the pivot from information management systems and real-time data to action. The next webinar we host this year will be focused on anticipatory action. It's something we've worked a lot on. And there's a national dialogue for anticipatory action that's happening in Nepal that was postponed from earlier, just a couple of weeks ago, will happen, I believe, in November, yet to be finalized. But there's a lot of fascinating work being done on anticipatory action, and we look forward to having other speakers working in the NGO side of that equation who will share insights in the next webinar. With that, I'll just thank all of our sponsors again, and I'll pass it to Jivika to thank all of our speakers and provide final thoughts.
Thank you, Austin. So as we wrap up today's discussion, first we would want to sincerely thank all our panelists for sharing their experience, insights, and most importantly, the practical perspectives. And also we would like to thank all the participants for attending and engaging actively. We apologize for not being able to address every questions, but we can see that our speakers tried to answer as many questions in the chat box. Finally, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to our funding partners, the McConnell Foundation, DFAT, and Margaret A. Cargill Foundation, whose support has made this initiative possible. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
See you all next time. Thank you.